Hey friends, and welcome to today's presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to talk to you about an easy way to form your yearbook page if you're accumulating sentiments from your students in a digital fashion and you don't have access to Photoshop. This would be one easy way for you to form that yearbook signature page. I'm in a PowerPoint presentation and my two blue arrows are pointing to design and then slide size. So the very first step that you want to employ is that you want to start with a brand new PowerPoint presentation, and then you want to save that at some point. I'm going to talk about saving in a little while. One of the very first steps is that you should head over to design, and then you should choose slide size. And I'm assuming that your yearbook is either going to be 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11. Feel free to talk to your yearbook coordinator in order to make sure that you get the size appropriate, that you end up with the correct size. And then after you have clicked on slide size, you want to scoot down right here to where it says custom slide size. When you do that, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. On the left-hand side where it says width and height, you want to change those to the appropriate dimensions. So either 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11. And then over on the right-hand side, the orientation, not the notes in the handouts, but the orientation should be landscape. And so you'll notice how landscape has a black bubble. Go ahead and click OK. And then after you choose OK, over here on the right-hand side where it says ensure fit, we want to make sure that we ensure fit so that nothing is chopped off. And once you click ensure fit, then your presentation is ready to go. On my next picture, I'm going to show you how it's important to save as. On your main screen, you're going to choose File, and then from File, you want to save this project. So go ahead and click where it says Save As, and then find a destination on your computer, followed by a naming strategy that's helpful for you. And then once we have saved this, we want to head over to Google Classroom where we can begin that snipping process. Here I am in Google Classroom, and I've clicked up at the top where it says Classwork. I'm now going to scoot over to the right-hand side where it says Class Drive Folder, and I want to click on the Class Drive folder. When I click on the Class Drive folder, it's going to redirect me to Google Drive where I have subfolders for this project. Now there's more than one way that you can get to student work. This is just one of several different ways. And then inside this folder, you're going to find all of those student projects that are waiting for you to snip those sentiments. So I've gone through and I've taken out all of the sensitive information like student name, teacher name, those sorts of things. And you can see how I have all of these projects tucked into this one spot in a tidy fashion. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to open each one of these projects and then snip, take a little picture, if you will, of each of those words. So here I have on display how 3 of those projects are open, and there's more than one way that you can go in and snip these. In my opinion, the fastest way to snip is to use the keyboard shortcuts where you hold down the Windows button and you also hold down the Shift button at the same time, and then you touch the letter S. S like snip. When you do that, your screen's going to go sort of this milky gray color, and then you can begin snipping one by one each of those items so that you can put them into that PowerPoint presentation. So let me model what this looks like. On your computer screen, you may not want to have both of these side by side. It all just depends on the quality that you're going to achieve. Now, I'm going to use those 3 buttons on my computer. I'm going to use Windows, Shift, and S, and you'll see how that milky gray color has appeared. I now have the crosshatch instead of the arrow. I'm going to use my index finger on my mouse. I'm going to click on the top left. I'm going to scoot down to the bottom right, and the only thing I want in the snip is the sentiment from that one student. When I let go, that item has been saved to my clipboard. I'm I'm going to scoot over here to the project. I'm going to click one time, Control V for victory, and there I have those sentiments, those ideas pop up on the screen. I'm going to scoot it down for the purpose of size because I'm probably going to have 16 or 17 little quotes on one page. It's important to leave a gutter around the perimeter of the page so that it's not sliced off when it's dropped into that yearbook space, and the editor has the ability to make some minor adjustments. I'm going to scoot over to the next tab where I have somebody else's thoughts. I'm going to click away from the slide so the blue box disappears. Windows Shift S. I'm going to scoot around that quote. I'm going to let go. I'm going to click over here on the PowerPoint presentation, Control V for victory. I'm going to scoot it down to whatever size works for me. Scoot it over here, and then I'm just going to repeat that process several times until I have all of those quotes available on that yearbook page. Another adjustment that you can make while you're doing this, it's all up to you. If you feel like the quotes are kind of blending together and it's hard to differentiate between them, you can click and then right click. The style button will appear right here by clicking style. You can put a thin border around any one of those quotes. If you feel like it needs to be every once in a while, I need one that's a little bit more dynamic than the rest. I'm going to choose that next tab. I'm going to click off of the quote so the blue box disappears. Windows Shift S. I'm going to scoot around that quote, come back over here, Control V for victory, and I'm going to tuck that into spot. All right, friends, I don't have 27 student samples for the purpose of child safety. So I'm just going to generate a couple extra in here, and I don't need those all lined up. You do have the ability to use those characteristics on the right hand side to adjust design if you need to. It may or may not work for what you're trying to achieve. And then you can also use the arrow on the keyboard if you need to in order to move some of these into a tidy spot so that they're delightful. Obviously, you're not going to have 6 quotes from the same friend over and over again. You're going to have individual quotes that are different. Let me also highlight, okay, see how this one, when it tucks down, those words disappear. If you want something to be on the top of another one, you're going to right click and then bring to front or send to back, or scoot a little bit, bring forward one step, bring forward one step, and so on. That way you can have them nest on top of one another without some of those words disappearing. So the white is always going to be white. You're not really going to get rid of that in this situation. But if you feel like something needs to be on top of something else, you can either use that side menu, or another thing that I'll do is I'll click on the one that I want in the front, Control C for copy, Control X for cut, Control V for victory or paste, and then it will come to the front. So the most recent item will be in the most front position. Once you have most of those quotes into spot, again, just verify that you've got some of that perimeter border. Your yearbook coordinator is going to thank you for that. And then once you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that your project is finished and it's good to go, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to turn this into a JPEG file. Friends, I'm smart. I know yours isn't going to have excessive repetition like mine does, but I just needed to fill the page just to kind of give you some perspective. Let's pretend that you have all 17 quotes in there. You're now ready to turn it into a picture. I'm going to click on one. I'm now going to hold the control button down on my keyboard. I'm going to touch the letter A for all, which means that I'm selecting all of the items on the page. I'm going to make sure that my mouse is on top of one of these pictures, right click, and then you'll notice right here where it says Save as Picture. This is exactly what I want to do. When I click Save as Picture, I now want to save this picture on my computer. After clicking Save as Picture, I'm going to find an important destination. I'm going to choose desktop. It's not normally the spot where I save everything, but I'm going to go ahead and choose desktop, and then I'm going to type out yearbook page, and I'll call it number 1 based on the number of signatures that you have. You might need a second one. And then in my opinion, it would be important to come down here and choose JPEG file. Now, PNG might work, but it might be alarming to you at first because it might look very black in position. And you're like, wait a minute, I don't want a black background. It appears confusing at first. It should print white, but to alleviate any confusion whatsoever, I recommend JPEG followed by save. So I just opened up this picture off of my desktop, and you will see how all of those sentiments, all of those ideas are now inside of this picture. I can now email this picture to the yearbook coordinator. You can also see around the perimeter why it's very helpful to create a gutter or a border, because you don't want any of that to be chopped off. So just make sure that you've got plenty of space around that outside in order to make sure that you have a good border. Well, Melissa, I have done this 3 or 4 times and I still don't have a good border. The other workaround would be to put a box into the back so that the PowerPoint recognizes exactly what your perimeter is. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to choose a rectangle. I'm going to fill that rectangle white. I'm going to go right click and then I'm going to say send to back. That way when I choose Control A, right click followed by save as picture, and I call this yearbook number 2. So instead of PNG, I'm going to go to JPEG. I can click on yearbook and then yearbook 2. You can now see how there is a larger border around the perimeter. Previously, it took the very thin edge around the most left, right, top, and bottom items, but now that I've put that rectangle in there, the perimeter has been redefined to also include the white rectangle as well. This may be an essential workaround for you to make sure that you don't lose out on that border that's important to you. Now, these files might be too large to email. You may need to drop them into Google Drive and then send them to your yearbook coordinator via Google Drive. Thank you so much for paying attention to today's presentation, and have a great day.